Hey everybody, it's Chris and I'm back today to show you how I resin coasters. This is a set of coasters that I had done when I did the turntable the other day with a puddle pour. The colors that I had used were Payne's Gray, my custom silver, and white. And I just did a puddle pour on those. You can see the video. It's uploaded onto YouTube. So I thought I would come back today to show you how I finished the coasters with the resin. I do use Coat Countertop resin. I'm using the art resin today. It's also heat resistant up to 475 degrees. The coasters were taped before I started to paint them. And then they'll get the coat of resin, and then about 12 to 14 hours later, I'll be able to peel off the tape, and the resin will still be soft enough that the tape comes off very easily, and I don't have to fight with drips of paint on the back of the, drips of resin on the back of the coasters. Once the coasters are completely set, then I do go back, and this is one of my coasters that I finished from a different pour, but I do go back and I put felt pads on each corner of the tile so that they don't scratch furniture and such. And I just buy these little self-adhesive felt backs at Walmart. They come in a package for like 100 for just a few dollars, and I find that's a really nice, easy way to finish the coasters. I know some people like to do cork on them, but I just find that so much quicker just to put the little sticky tabs on them. What I am doing my resin in today is I just have a foil pan, and you can see that it's got some other coats of resin in here. I've just got a little plastic cup in there that I set my coasters on, and then that way it runs off into the pan so it doesn't create quite a mess. I have wiped my coasters down with Windex and paper towel. I have a little bit of paper towel on this one still. I did not use silicone on my coasters, however I always wipe them down to make sure they're nice and clean before I start to resin them. So I'm just going to set this here in the center, and then I've got my resin already mixed, and I just pour some on, make sure I have a nice coat on there, and just kind of smooth it out to the edges, and just see that sparkle and glitter come alive when you put that resin on there. Holy cow, it's beautiful. I have to say this is probably one of my favorite color combinations that I've done, and I just keep thinking I want to do more stuff with this particular type of pour because I just think it turns out so beautiful. I always make sure that I've got my edges covered, and then once I have everything nice and smooth looking, I just kind of take my popsicle stick and I just go around the edges to make sure that those have a nice coat of resin on them. And then I let it set. I'll set it over here to the side. I've got some cups set up. So I'll just set this guy right here, and then I'll go on to the next one. And I'm just gonna let that sit there and kind of do its thing. Sometimes I find that my resin will resist on the edges, so I just kind of keep an eye on that for a little bit to make sure that I do have enough on there. And I find sometimes that's the problem, is I don't have a thick enough coat on there, so it'll pull away from the edges. And I find that it usually takes around an ounce of resin per coaster, probably a little bit less than that, but usually when I mix up my resin, kind of try to figure out how many coasters I need to do, and then I'll usually mix about an ounce for each one. Sometimes I have a little bit more, so I try to always have extra coasters on hand so that I can do the resin on those as well if I have extra. So I've got this guy coated pretty well, and then I'll set it up here to kind of settle. Oops, my little cup went right in the side. Alright, and then this is the third one for the set. After I have these all resined, then I'll go back and use my torch to pop any bubbles that are in the resin, which I think it's impossible not to have bubbles in your resin. If you don't have bubbles in your resin, let me know how you do that, because I would love to know. Because I think just the mixing of it, and it's just impossible to avoid bubbles. But they're very easily removed with a torch, so I usually just let it sit there so that the bubbles can come up to the surface. I find that usually after I've let them sit for about a half an hour, if I go back to check on them, sometimes I'll find more bubbles coming up. I'm just going to readjust this one. I don't think I have it quite in the center because it's kind of dripping off the air on the edge. Alright, and this is the fourth one. I don't know if you guys can see how much these are sparkling with that silver glitter that's in the mix, but they really are turning out pretty. Alright, as you can see, it's pretty quick to put resin on coasters, and it goes pretty fast, so you can kind of knock out a lot of coasters in a short amount of time. Alright, and I'm just going to set this resin over here to the side, and I'll put this guy up here on its little pedestal. And I always double glove when I do resin so that I can peel one set of gloves off and still have clean gloves underneath, so that when I go to grab my torch, I have clean gloves, and then I don't have to worry so much about gluing my torch shut with my resin. I don't have my long gloves on today like I normally do, but I figured with just a quick demo I wouldn't need to wear those. So I've got my butane torch, so I'm just going to kind of set it on low, and you just need to kind of pass over it, and you'll see the bubbles popping. And I do recommend that you wear a respirator. Normally I do wear a respirator, but since I'm doing this demo for you guys, I figured I'd probably sound like Darth Vader if I had that on. So just doing a really quick going over these to make sure that I've got all my bubbles popped. That also helps to warm up the resin enough so that it does smooth out the surface. It makes it a really nice, clean, smooth surface on the top of it. So I'm just going to set these over here in my little spot to dry. I have an area set up in my room so that I can tent those with it's actually a shower curtain. It's quite interesting. I'll have to post a picture of that so you can see how I do that. I have very limited space, so I have to use it very wisely, but I'll set these guys over here to dry, and thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, please let me know, and please hit like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more. Thanks so much.